The year is 1926. Portugal is in shambles. There are riots in the streets, the people have lost trust in their government, the government has lost trust in the banks, their international relations are strained, their money is worth nothing, and they're about to succumb to a dictatorship that would reign until the 1970s. And much of that can be blamed on the actions of one man. Please state your name for the record. Artur Vigilio Alves dos Reis. Please, call me Artur. The purpose of this hearing is to determine whether, if released, you are likely to break the law again. Although this was your first conviction, you've been implicated in a variety of different schemes and frauds in the past. At the tender age of 20, you've forged a diploma from Oxford saying that you have degrees in engineering sciences, geology, geometry, physics, metallurgy, pure mathematics, paleography, electric and mechanical engineering, and applied mechanics. Yes, but you haven't studied any of those. No. And you didn't know anything about railways. No. But it says here that they promoted you to become the chief engineer of Angolan railways in the Portuguese colony of Angola. Yes. Again, at this point you knew nothing about engineering? No. And then they made you director of Angolan railways? At 22? Yes. How is that possible? Skillshare is an online learning platform. Moving on to how you got caught and ended up here. You bought shares in the company Ambaka, is that right? Yes. With fake checks. Yes. Mr. Artur, what we're trying to find out is if there was a reason you committed this crime, or was there a reason you simply got caught this time? My wife left me. I was upset. I got into a self-destructive pattern. If released, is it likely you'd fall back into a similar pattern? She already left me once. I don't think she'll do it again just for kicks. Mr. Artur, what do you think you would do once released? In prison, Artur had time to think about his actions and how he could do better in the future. However, not in the "you're out of prison and you won't do it again" way, but more in the "you're out of prison and next time you won't get caught" way. Instead of faking checks in order to make money, he thought, why not cut out the middleman and just print money? And that's indeed a good question, because there are only really three problems you encounter with the counterfeit money scheme: making the money, getting rid of it, and not getting caught. Easy enough, you would think, but most of these schemes fail on either one or all of these points. However, while in prison, Artur came up with one of the most audacious and ingenious counterfeiting schemes in world history. Step 1. Making the money. The problem with printing your own money is that it's pretty complicated to do convincingly. Even if you're able to get the right paper and the right ink and the right color, it's basically impossible to make your own printing plates, because they need to be incredibly precise in order for the money to look authentic. So Artur thought, why should I make the money myself if there are already banks that print money? I just need to convince them to print it for me. Of course. Wait, how was he gonna do that? You see, the Banco de Portugal is the central bank of Portugal. They authorize all of the money printing. He obviously couldn't just go to them and tell them to print money for him, because they would ask who the hell he is and whether he's insane. However, the Banco de Portugal does not physically print the money themselves. They merely tell printing houses to print the money for them. And that's where Artur comes in. His plan was to go to the printing houses directly. He would say that he speaks on behalf of a conglomerate of wealthy businessmen that would like to invest a couple of £1,000,000 into the Portuguese colony Angola. And the central bank has agreed to print that money in Portuguese escudos, so that the businessmen could spend it in Angola. And as it so happens, the central bank has authorized Artur to order these banknotes from the printing house, and then he would give them a very official-looking contract. But of course, there are no businessmen. There's not a single pound sterling to back this, and the central bank never authorized Artur to do any of this. I mean, they didn't even know who he was. However, with a fake contract in hand and the right signatures on it, the printing house would never know. Now he only needed to find some accomplices that would be daring enough to help him with this insane operation. The crew. The first member Arthur recruited was Karel Marang van Eysselweer, a Dutch investor who made enough money scamming the German government in World War I to buy himself a noble title. Then there was Jose Bandera, who was Arthur's right hand throughout this whole operation and happened to be the brother of Antonio Bandera. Not that one, but I couldn't find a photo, so yeah, might as well. He was the Portuguese ambassador to the Netherlands, and also a frequent organizer of parties for Dutch high society, including Prince Hendrik of the Netherlands. He would put official stamps on all of the documents that authorized the printing of money, and tell other ambassadors over a drink to do the same. He was also the lover of Dutch actress Fie Carresen, who at the time was one of the most famous actresses in the world. Her apartment in Paris would be used strategically to evade the Portuguese authorities. This team of unlikely accomplices was completed by Gustav Adolf Hennies, a German spy who had contacts all over the world and who took care of all of the business in Angola. The execution. With the crew assembled, the next question was, which printing house should they approach? Portugal's central bank had quite a lot of places that print money for them. However, Arthur needed a place that was still actively printing, because otherwise, and this is very important, the printing house would have to order the printing plates from the Portuguese central bank. They would then ask, what do you need the plates for? We didn't ask you to print that money. And the whole operation would be uncovered. Van Eysselweer had a couple of acquaintances at the printing house Johan Enschede in the Netherlands. They were still actively printing escudos for the Portuguese central bank. So Van Eysselweer goes to them, gives them the fake contract, and they go, okay. Signed Ambassador Bandera. There's a problem. Okay. See, for this specific version of the money, we don't have the printing plates. And we'll have to order it from the central bank. But I also know that the printing house Waterloo & Sons in London has them. You should go over there. We'd be happy to give you a letter of recommendation. Pooh! So Van Eysselweer goes to London and talks to William Waterloo. He gives William the contract that explains that there's a conglomerate of businessmen that wants to invest in Angola, and that the central bank has authorized the print of 200,000 times 500 escudo notes and 100,000 times 1,000 escudo notes, which would be 200 million escudos, or 150 million US dollars adjusted for inflation, signed by a couple of ambassadors. Furthermore, to be really safe, Van Eysselweer tells William not to tell anybody about this order. He explains this by A, the loan itself would be politically unpopular for his business partners who would rather not be associated with it, and B, there's another printing house, Bradbury Wilkinson & Co., a competitor of Waterloo & Sons, that usually prints all the money for the colonies, but two anonymous higher-ups in the central bank would rather give their business to Waterloo & Sons, because their name stands for quality and precision. This was of course a lie, but a very flattering one, and so it worked. William is of course very excited about this business opportunity, swears not to tell anybody about it, and signs the deal right away. Both sides are very happy about this deal, and Van Eysselweer is already on his way out when William says, by the way, for the version that you want, we currently don't have the printing plates, but we'll just order them from the central bank, no worries. No. I mean, no. That won't be necessary. You can just print whichever old versions you still have. That won't be a problem. Don't worry. It's fine. It's totally no worries. Oh, okay. I guess we could do that. Phew. If you don't mind, I'll just send a letter to the central bank to verify that we are actually allowed to do that. Can I trust you to give it to them? And he gives the letter to Van Eysselweer, who cannot believe his flippin' luck. He goes back to Portugal and gives the letter to Arthur, who of course fakes the answer from the central bank, in which he says, "Dear Mr. Waterloo, thank you for being so considerate and cautious. We here at the central bank really appreciate that, but don't worry, you're absolutely authorized to print the version of the money you have. Don't sweat it. We swear. Pinky promise. Signed, the central bank." And so in January of 1925, only 4 months after his release from jail, Waterloo & Sons start printing millions of escudos for Arthur, with no way of telling them apart from the real money, because for all intents and purposes, it was real money. So, step 1, done. Step 2, getting rid of the money. They would use Antonio Bandeira's diplomatic exemption from customs to transport the bills in his luggage to Portugal. They stored some of the money in Fee Carlson's vault in Paris, and until March 20th they had collected 100 million escudos, or $75 million. Now it was time to launder the money without raising suspicion. At first, Artur hired a bunch of petty criminals to launder the money. This was of course very slow, but it helped him to acquire some capital to set up bigger money laundering schemes. In April, he bought a couple of farms. In May, he bought a taxi company, and in June, when all of that wasn't quick enough still, he bribed a handful of Portuguese officials and politicians and founded his own bank. The Banco de Angola e Metrópole. We'll call it BAM. BAM would come to be known as one of the kindest and most forgiving banks in the country. You want to exchange foreign currency? BAM provides the best rates. Want to borrow money for your mortgage? BAM will be happy to extend your loan. Want high interest rates on your deposits? BAM has got you covered. You want to invest in Dogecoin? BAM doesn't ask why, but how much. You want to set up a business that sells sand in the desert? Here, have some cash to get you started. They invested in so many businesses, infrastructure, land and people in Portugal that the economy was booming, at which point they ordered even more money from Waterloo & Sons, who were happy to oblige. Artur became one of the richest people in Portugal, and him and his accomplices bought cars, jewelry, expensive clothing and real estate all over the world. José Bandeira became somewhat of a fashion icon as he bought up many retail stores all over Portugal. In September of 1925, Artur and his German accomplice Henius made a tour of Angola, buying properties, investing in corporations, and making development plans for all sorts of infrastructure all over the country. Artur was hailed there as a savior who almost single-handedly created a thriving Angolan economy. So, step 2, done. Step 3, don't get caught. In late September, the crew met up in Paris, where Artur would tell them about the brilliant final step in his plan. A plan that would make it virtually impossible for them to get caught. Since they were counterfeiting Banco de Portugal banknotes, only the central bank could initiate proceedings to prosecute them. You know what that means. We're gonna blow up the bank? No, jeez. Over the next couple of months, they were going to buy shares in the central bank until they controlled the majority. That way, they could block any investigation they wanted. In the words of Artur, how can they arrest us when they're us and we're them? And so the crew began to buy shares in Portugal's central bank. October. Back in Portugal, the first doubts began to arise over the legitimacy of BAM. Banks went down left, right and center amidst economic downturns in Portugal, except for BAM, who were basically throwing money at anything they could. Do you need more? Some had already suspected that they were counterfeiting money, but when they looked at the banknotes, nobody could find anything wrong with them. By the end of November 1925, Artur controlled over 43% of shares in the Banco de Portugal stock. Just another month, and he would have control of the central bank and would be set for the rest of his life. However, the crew had unknowingly made one fatal mistake. December 2nd, 1925. Some random teller that worked at a legitimate currency exchange shop that had a cooperation with BAM noticed something suspicious. BAM only ever supplied them with 500 and 1,000 escudo notes and massive amounts of them. So he goes to the central bank with some of those notes. They open up an investigation and find that many of the serial numbers on the 500 escudo notes are the same. You see, when Waterloo & Sons asked Van Eyselweer and Artur about which serial numbers they should print on the notes, they just didn't know what to say, and so they went, same as last time? Alright boss, coming right up. The scheme was up. A newspaper broke the story on the 4th of December. People had around 3 weeks to exchange their bills, and the news that this is about an enormous counterfeiting scheme spread like wildfire. The Banco Angola e Metrópole was shut down. Large monetary deposits are declared void, massive BAM-funded projects had to be abandoned, people are rushing to the banks to withdraw money, and there are riots in the streets. William Waterloo was summoned to Lisbon. The way there must have been terrifying. He must have felt like a little boy that got told not to steal from the cookie jar, only for the mother to come home and he burned down the house. He had to take on a fake identity to be able to go back to England because the people were furious that such an incompetent, negligent, and corrupt individual that helped ruin their country would be allowed to return home a free man. And then he became mayor of London. In the end, Waterloo & Sons printed 290 million escudos, 16.5% of the total amount of escudos existing. If the same were to happen today in the US, that would amount to $3.4 trillion. This whole affair had destroyed the trust in the Portuguese currency, government and economy. A mere months later, there is a military coup that overthrows the democracy, and after that Portugal puts its trust in the theories of a professor of economics, Antonio Oliveira Salazar, bringing about a 46-year dictatorship. Fee Carlson and Antonio Bandeira could not be linked to the operation and were not charged. Antonio later became known as the Cat in Shrek, and that was that. Hennius fled to Germany before they could catch him, but made a series of bad investments when he got there and died a poor man in 1939. José Banderas served a sentence of 15 years, went into the nightclub business, and died a well-liked man in 1960. Van Rijsselberg was sentenced to 11 months in prison, but never served it. Instead, he went to France, founded his own electrical appliance company, and died a wealthy man in 1960 at his holiday home in Cannes. Waterloo & Sons only had to reimburse the Portuguese government for the cost of exchanging the faulty notes, for a grand total of £650,000, or $63 million today. Artur was convicted to 20 years in prison. The trial lasted 5 years because his falsified documents were so convincing that the judges thought he had to have accomplices within the central bank. He was released from prison in 1945 and tried one last con in Angola's coffee trade. He was caught, and then he died of a heart attack. If you like what you saw, and you want to see more of it in the future, subscribe to my channel. As a very small creator, it would mean a lot to me. Thank you to all my Patreons, hello to my new Patreons, How is Sandwich, what a brilliant name, and Justin Yaki, thank you a lot. If you want your name to be next in the credits of all of this channel's videos forever, subscribe to my Patreon. Before my mom does it. Quick! Anyways, thank you all for watching. Have a lovely day. And the bank teller goes, Steve, I was wondering, isn't it odd that they only ever supply us with like 500 and 1,000 escudo notes? I mean, all the other banks give us all of the other money, but they only give us that. And like, what are you talking about? That's not odd. That's totally normal. I mean, and then in the back you hear like beep, beep, beep. Some lorry driver comes with more and more money, and the room like slowly fills up with money, and then, nah, f that. I'm never gonna draw that.